And having Dr. de Duve as a mentor, his people who were here at that time from Belgium as mentors, I learned the biochemistry, I learned the techniques, but de Duve let me go along my own interests. It was within the framework of the department, but yes, what I have done was always what I wanted to do. And from then on, there was no question that I will do what I'm interested in and what I want to do. So the opportunities given to me were unbelievable. Very few people have such a chance. Possibly my insistence of publishing in the West from Hungary against the odds, having to write the paper in English and submit it and go through the editorial process helped. But yes, it was him who made it possible that I am still here 51 years later, even though I no longer do experimental research. My interest in society life became less pronounced, so I no longer an active member. I am an active member of the society, but I am no longer any official. So that period was in the 70s and 80s when I played a role in the science organization. I played a role in the science organization by being invited to NSF and NIH to study groups. So these were all part of my life. I did that for many years, and it was a very interesting way of learning how science is done in America. Hydrogenosomes, the enzymes of hydrogenosomes, doing the molecular biology and molecular evolution became our major effort. I had quite a few co-workers over the years. There is no time now to go into all. From my publications, it's self-evident who was here and who did the work. In terms of the hydrogenosome, one very interesting evolution came later, not from my group, but then we followed up on it. It turned out that hydrogenosomes and mitochondria come from the same ancestor. So hydrogenosomes are not an independently evolved organelle, but hydrogenosomes belong to the mitochondrial family, which means that mitochondria are not only anaerobic respiratory organelles, but have other functions in different organisms. And this became a very important research direction today. There are quite a few people exploring mitochondrion-related organelles in different organisms. One of the organisms we already started with Don Lindmark was an organism, Giardia lumblia, an organism which causes tourists diarrhea. It's usually in wild organisms. You can find contaminated water drinking. So it's a pretty unpleasant disease. And when we started looking at it, we knew that its metabolism is very similar to Trichomonas, typical anaerobic enzymes, but there were no organelles. So all what happened in terms of this metabolic property was not part of the organelle we discovered. Later it turned out, by our and other people's work, that they contain much smaller organelles, the so-called microsomes, which are related to mitochondria, but do not have any metabolic function. So in terms of evolution, you had now the typical mitochondria. In some worms, you had mitochondria which were anaerobic, but with typical mitochondrial properties. You had the hydrogenosomes in trichomonads, and you had the mitosomes in other parasitic organisms. So from one well-defined organelle, as described by George Palladi and several others here, it turned out that we found really, we expanded the family and we found quite a few different members in the family. But they all are derived from a same ancestral organelle during the evolution. So this was a very exciting thing. And then we got to the point that with Bill Martin and myself, we published the book on the origin of mitochondria and hydrogenosomes by Springer. So this was again a great recognition of our work that we got this far.